This is a simple sketch of the central nervous system looking from the back. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The spinal cord is divided into 5 regions that reflect where peripheral nerves enter and leave the vertebral canal. These are the cervical region or neck, the thoracic region, the lumbar region, the sacral region, and the coccygeal region. Visceral motor cell bodies occur in only 3 areas of the central nervous system. One is a small area of the brain associated with cranial nerves 3, 7, 9, and 10. No visceral motor nerves are found associated with or emerging from the cervical area. The second area associated with visceral motor nerves is T1 to L2 spinal region. No visceral motor nerves are found associated with or emerging from the lower lumbar and upper sacral regions. The third area is sacral region S2-3-4. No visceral motor nerves are associated with S5 or the coccygeal region. Those visceral motor nerves from T1 to L2 are defined as sympathetic. These nerves tend to be associated with the body dealing with stress or activity. This also means that wherever in the body you have sympathetic innervation, the nerves have to come from T1 to L2. Those visceral motor nerves emerging from regions on either side of where the sympathetics emerge are referred to as parasympathetic. These are either cranial or sacral. These nerves tend to be associated with vegetative functions or returning the body to baseline activity. Let's have a look at how sympathetic fibers are arranged with respect to the spinal cord and the associated spinal nerves. Spinal nerves are connected to the spinal cord by 2 roots. The posterior root carries sensory information into the spinal cord, and the cell bodies for all these sensory neurons are located outside the central nervous system in sensory ganglia. Those ganglia associated with spinal nerves are spinal ganglia. The anterior root carries motor fibers out of the central nervous system. Unlike the sensory cell bodies, the cell bodies of motor neurons are located within the central nervous system. The blue and green fibers shown here are somatic sensory and somatic motor neurons. What about the visceral motor or sympathetic fibers? The cell bodies of these neurons are located within the spinal cord in the lateral horn. Because they're motor neurons, their fibers leave the cord in the anterior root. Unlike somatic motor neurons, visceral motor neurons synapse with a second motor neuron. These second neurons are located in a motor ganglion outside the central nervous system. Paravertebral sympathetic ganglia are connected to the anterior ramus of a spinal nerve by 2 communicating arms, or rami communicantes. A gray ramus communicans carries postganglionic fibers back onto the spinal nerve. A white ramus communicans carries preganglionic fibers from the spinal cord into the sympathetic ganglion. Postganglionic fibers that are carried by branches of the spinal nerve to the periphery with somatic fibers course to blood vessels, smooth muscles associated with hair follicles, and glands associated with the skin. Now let's consider how sympathetic fibers get to viscera in the body core. First, let's consider sympathetics to structures in the thorax, for example, the heart. Like sympathetics to the periphery, those preganglionic fibers going to the viscera come from the lateral horn. They are carried out of the cord in the anterior root and synapse with postganglionic neurons in the paravertebral sympathetic ganglia suspended from the anterior ramus. Unlike those traveling to the periphery, those postganglionic fibers to viscera in the core do not course back onto the spinal nerve. Rather, these form special named visceral nerves that travel directly from the ganglion to the organ. The one shown here is a cardiac nerve. Sympathetics traveling to the viscera in the abdomen and pelvis do something different. Let's draw a representative piece of viscera in the abdomen and pelvis, here a piece of gut. Like all preganglionic fibers, these begin in the lateral horn. They travel into the sympathetic ganglia, but don't synapse there. Rather, the preganglionic fibers leave the ganglion as splanchnic nerves. These nerves then travel into the abdomen and synapse in prevertebral sympathetic ganglia associated with blood vessels. Postganglionic fibers then travel with the blood vessels to target organs.